me that whole thing. I want to watch it.
It was good, really good. I've never heard his story before. It was good.
I used to watch Fallon in my heathen days of life.
Like Saturday Night Live type.
No, on his show,
Late night show.
Yeah, when it was like kind of right when he first took it over.
Took over for Conan.
Did he take over for Conan?
Took over Conan first, and then he took over for Jay Leno.
When he took over the Jay Leno show, because I would stay up all night, because back then I would drink a lot, and so I would watch football all evening, and then I wouldn't want to go to bed.
Yeah.
So I would sit there and I would watch him after football was over every night. And so I watched him all the time. Like I looked forward to it.
Yeah, he's a funny guy.
All the time. But when I quit drinking, I went to bed all the time.
The other things.
When the game was over, I went to bed.
Yeah. The rest of the body's not there.
Yeah. And, it's I honestly, I don't want to stop that. I stopped watching sports a lot too. Sports became less interesting. Like I have my teams, like Thunder Up, and I'll watch their games. But if it's not their game, like I had during this whole playoff run, I only watch Thunder games. I didn't watch the other games during football season. I only watch Colorado. I don't watch anybody else play. College basketball, same thing. I watch Colorado. They are awful, but I watch Colorado. And I don't watch anybody else. It's just one of those things. I don't actually like the viewership of sport. Like, it doesn't excite me.
Yeah, not anymore, besides the Razorbacks.
Yeah, but I do enjoy watching my teams. So I typically, I stay up even later now because Colorado plays at freaking 9:30 Arkansas time a lot of times.
But what I'm talking about, like the focus is, I think some parts of his story, not a Christian guy, I don't believe, but some of the parts of what we're talking about, like crazy amount of focus, yeah, he has it in his story for sure.
I think that we talked about growth last week, and part of that is like a focus on I want to be better. But like when we start to narrow down the topic of like what we're going to focus on, the priorities we're going to set out to achieve, it gets even more. The 10,000 hour rule, Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. And there's factors that come into play about, he uses hockey as an example. And he talks about how if there's like 75% or something like that, I'd have to pull the book out and look, but it's a super high percentage of NHL players are born between like January and March every year. And the reason being because of where their birthday falls, they end up getting to level up quicker in play. They're older than the rest of their teammates, and so they get to go. They end up playing on better teams. They end up playing with better coaches and players, and so they're actually, just because of where their birthday falls, they get to level up quicker. Now that is mitigated when you look at like Connor Bedard, the player for the Chicago Blackhawks right now, who is supposedly the best player to come out in a really long time into the NHL. He's born in like July. And now we're looking at the 10,000 hour rule, where it's like, even though there are factors that can come into play of success, really effort and focus is what breeds success more times than just, who you were born to, where you were born, or when you were born. Yeah,
the driving factor of being like, they put the hours in, they put the effort in. Like they were born a little bit in not earlier time, I don't know what, but in a window, so they could have more time to practice versus everyone else who was born in whatever time that they were born. But yeah, so like the Jimmy Fallon story, this dude, I think he was certifiably like kind of insane. That's what he was. At 13, he was like, I'm going to be on Saturday Night Live. Like he said, like wrote it down, said, no matter what happens, I'm going to be on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
And the dude was obsessed with the show, and like that's all. Every Saturday night he would watch it. They would record it on a VHS. No one's that young watching this, I don't think, but
they can't
not know what a VHS is. Anyway,
maybe.
But anyway, so he would record it on his VHS and watch it every single time. Like he's had all of his friends throughout all of high school and college would be like, "Hey, let's go out on Saturday night." He's like, "No, I'm going to watch Saturday Night Live. I'm going to analyze every single video, why it's funny, how can it be so funny, and then how am I going to place myself into that shoes." And he would do impressions for hours and hours and hours, the 10,000 hour rules. And eventually he just dedicated his whole life to get on that show. The interviewer was interviewing him was like, well, what would happen if you never got on Saturday Night Live? He's like, I would have gotten on the show. He's like, what happens if you wouldn't have gotten on the show? He's like, I would have gotten on the show.
Yeah, like it's not an option.
There's no other option besides to get on the show. goes to his focus where he was like almost insane about it. I think Mr. Beast was kind of the same way whenever he was doing his videos.
His story sounds very similar.
All like maybe there's just a thing where it says like if you dedicate all of your time and effort and energy into one thing, eventually you will be good at that one thing, no matter what. Like with all the odds happening, you are putting yourself in a position to be good at that thing, whatever it is.
Yeah, Stephen King talked about it, and he wrote a book called On Writing, which is like it's kind of like part memoir of his life, but also part like him telling you his process and how he wrote books and how you should think about certain things. And he talks about, he's like, everybody can write. He's like, now, not everybody's going to be a great writer. He's like, even if you give all of your time, energy to it. And, you know, I think that's pushing back on what you just said in a way, because I do think like, all right, I'm 6 foot tall. I'm 200 pounds. I can't dunk. I could spend my entire life trying to get in the NBA up to this point. I'm still not getting in the NBA.
But I think if like when you were like, whatever, 9 or 10, and you were like, that's your focus. You never did it. You never hung out with your friends. The only thing you ate and drank was to be able to get yourself in the NBA. You didn't go to college. You did everything you did was to focus on getting. I think you eventually. I think you would have gotten in like 10,000 hours of.
Yeah, but I do think, could I have mastered how to shoot?
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah,
could I have gotten, you know, physically capable to jump up and dunk a basketball? Yes, but there are limiting factors. Like I don't move as fast as other people.
I don't know anymore, man. Now that I've seen these like stories where people are like, I'm going to do the most insane things you could possibly do and to get to where they're going to go. Eventually it just happens. I mean,
but think about the two examples that you just used, Mr. Beast and Jimmy Fallon.
Sure.
Performers.
That's true.
They're both performers. Now, I do think that you can spend enough time learning how to perform to become a good performer. And, you know, Erwin McManus wrote a book called 7 Frequencies of Communication. And there's one of the, I can't remember which frequency it is, but one of them, the shadow is the performer. I think it's the teacher, maybe. It's like the teacher and the shadow is the performer. Anyway, it's like if you're operating how you're supposed to, you can train yourself to be an incredible communicator of information. You can tell, you know, a good pastor, for instance, let's say a pastor who spends all week studying, who goes on stage on a Sunday morning or in the pulpit on a Sunday morning, depending on how your church is set up, and they give you this not revelation, but they give you this understanding of the scripture that you didn't have before, because they've spent all this time studying, and it's great. They communicate it well because they know it and all these things. But there are some who will go, don't do that all week, who take the same verse or, you know, whatever it may be that they just know, and they walk on stage, but they are so honed in on the skill of performance that they can perform well. I think that only really works for performance art. Yeah, well, or they already had the talent before they had the crazy thought of doing these things or the crazy pursuit, like you're saying. Like maybe they could have done it without all the insaneness that you're saying. That makes sense. Yeah. So that's why I think it's like when you're looking at your kid and you're like, you can be whatever you want to be in this world. It's like, yeah, but little Timmy is kind of stupid. Little Timmy's probably not going to be an astronaut. Little Timmy's trying, man. He's trying his best. But little Timmy may be an incredible plumber someday and make a lot of money being an incredible plumber. There's nothing wrong with that. But little Timmy probably not going to be an astronaut. He's probably not going to be a Harvard-educated lawyer. But I don't know. I don't know anymore. I don't know. I feel like if someone sets their mind to something and they give it everything they got, and like, you have to be crazy. I think if something that you want is so crazy and astronomical, you have to be crazy and do insane things that nobody else was willing to do to achieve that thing. And I think if little Timmy said, I'm going to be an astronaut, and if he dedicated every moment of his life and never hung out with his friends or didn't do sports and didn't do all these other things, maybe Timmy could do it. That's all I'm saying about the focus part today. It's been making me realize things lately. I'm like, if I want something, you just have to put in the hours to do it. And it's not going to come to you without focus and intentionality. You got to put in the time. You got to put in the work and the effort to be able to accomplish that thing. But now that part I agree with. Yeah. Like if you have this thing you want to do and you have any aptitude remotely close to doing it, it takes the time and effort. And if you're willing to put in the time and effort, it's going to work out. Will you be the best person at it? Who knows? But you you can achieve those things if you're willing to put in the time and effort. I'm just saying, I think that there are some limiting factors to us that, that really it's physical feats, or it could be just this crazy, like, Einstein worked out the math that other people couldn't work out. Oppenheimer worked out the math other people couldn't work out. Like, there are once in a generation people, and there are these people, LeBron in the NBA, just a freak build and had the dedication. They had there's the Redeem Team documentary about the team that won the gold medal at the Olympics for the first time in I don't know how many years. Again, I don't watch a ton of sports outside of my teams, but in the documentary, they talked about, I think it was Kobe. Kobe joins the team and they're in Vegas for training camp, and like all the players go out at night and they're like partying it up, and it's like 4 a.m. and they walk into their hotel and Kobe's like eating breakfast in his gym clothes, ready to go to the gym. And they were like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm going to work out. Like, it's time. We're focused. This is basketball. Like, we've got to win this. And so he goes to the gym, and they said that his mentality, which Mamba mentality, I get, there's a name for it and all that, but it changed the way they all viewed it. And so now more players were going to the gym with him at 5 a.m., more players. And then eventually it was like, there was like one guy was like, yeah, I'm not going. But for the most part, the whole team was like bought in now. So this is how we do this. This is the mentality we have. We want to win the Olympics. We need to focus, and everybody got on board with it. But yeah, I mean, I think focus is, which is actually our topic for today. So welcome to the Pointman podcast. I'm Zach. This is Luke.
What's up?
And we're here, a little flyby intro, 10 minutes into the conversation, but it is what it is. Today we are looking at focus. So I think that's an appropriate way to think about it. And that was an interesting that popped across your timeline. You saw that. Yep. Here's to the crazy ones, as the old Apple computer ad said. And
yeah, sometimes it takes a little bit of being insane and insane focus to be able to get something done in life. And so it's inspiring me. And let's be focused on today's thing and get it done.
Yeah. Well, I do think that I think it's an important topic to talk about. Where are you putting your focus? What are you choosing to focus on? Are you actually achieving what you want to achieve with life? And what are the kind of, where are you at? What are the roadblocks that you're putting up in your own way to achieving those things? And I think they're important for us to talk about. I was talking to a gentleman on the phone the other day. He's having some like work issues. Not that he wasn't making good money, not that he didn't have a job. He was feeling unfulfilled in his job. And for his entire life up to this point, as a young man who got married, had a kid, has a house, like he has these responsibilities. And so his focus was, I need to make enough money to support my family. Valid thing to wish for. In fact, in 1 Timothy 5:8, it says, but if anyone does not provide for his relatives, and especially for members of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. Which, staunch words, and one that as a man we should be looking at probably more strictly than we do a lot of times. But he was very frustrated, and when I was talking to him, I was like, there's kind of two things I think you need to work out. One, feel good about what you've done. Your mortgage is paid, your kids are fed, your wife is fed and supported. Like, you're doing better than a lot of guys are right now. Whether they can't get a job for one reason or another, they just refuse to. But you're doing what you're supposed to do. Like, you've covered the basics of what it means to support your family. So now, on the flip side of that, I understand that you're not fulfilled in what you're doing. And what I told him, I said, just write down your 10 things that you're good at. Write down the 10 aspirations that you want for your life. I said, and then let's pray over those things for this week. And then let's sit down and let's figure out, where do these things cross? What could you be doing? Where could you go with your career or with your life where you began to feel fulfilled? Because, right now his focus is on the here and now, and he doesn't look to the future at all, which you have to at times. But at some point, if you just aspire or are inspired to do something different, it's going to take you turning some of that focus or all of that focus on that thing you aspire to do. I'll get it right in a second. Yeah.
So like what you're talking about, what the advice that you gave him, what comes to mind is prioritization. Yeah. I feel like you can't be focused without having your priorities in check. And like you're saying, you told him to write down the 10 things that are most important
Make them real.
Essentially, these are your priorities from whatever greatest to least. And I had some advice given to me whenever I first joined the Air Force. There was I had like a million things to do in my head. I'm like, man, I need to do all these things. I need to take them all. And I was just sitting there like having like a mini panic attack in my chair because I was like, I don't even know where to start. And I had this guy come up to me that he had been in for a little bit longer. He's like, what's the priority? And I was just like, I have no clue. And that will stress you out if you have no clue what is the most important thing. And like in your head, you're like, everything's important. He's like, it's not. There's no way. Not everything is the most important. So he's like, write everything down, put it in a list, tackle the most important things first. Do those most important things first. I'm like, okay. So ever since then, I'm like, every week or every month or whatever, I write everything I need to do, put it in a list. Most important. But like you said, this guy said he probably didn't have his priorities were the most important things he wasn't doing first. So I was stressing him out, making him not feel like he was.
Yeah. Not that he wasn't fulfilling his full potential because he's locked into this cycle of not mediocrity because it's not what it is, but of only handling the here and now and the bigger picture is going to waste. And I look at some older gentlemen. It's kind of sad in a way whenever they have this skill that they never tapped into in their life. And they had aspirations to do other things, but they didn't have the drive or willingness to put the focus in on those things. And that's really tough to see down the road someone who could have done something incredible but refused to do it and refused to take the risk, if you will, and to step into that season of life or that frame of life or to put to the side something that felt really important to them in the moment when in reality it wasn't that important to them, but that's where their focus was, so they missed the things that were going by them. I think we miss a lot of opportunities in life that we're not willing to take because our focus is in the wrong place. Yeah,
that's really good. A lot of the times people will say like, man, you're just really lucky that you got that thing or blessed or whatever. I've heard people talk, I'm talking about me, but just like talking about this person, this guy got a job or whatever. I'm like, you didn't see all those times where he was like focusing, working, and doing all the extra little things that he needed to do, have his priorities in line. So when that opportunity came, he was ready for it. He was ready to seize that moment no matter what. It was going to happen, regardless if he had to wait a year or 10 years for the opportunity. He was doing the things that he needed to do now so that when the opportunity came, he had his priorities in line where he was like, bam, now I'm going to, my God's the most important, my family's most important. So now you can make decisions based off those priority listings.
Yeah. And then you look at like, people when they have these grand aspirations, but they're focused in the wrong place, like little things start to get real important. If you want to achieve something great, like finances are really important. If you don't have your finances in place, you can't take the risk. And, I did it too. I bought a house right out of college. So now I have a mortgage. I got married. So now I have a wife. If you're single and you're like 25 and you have an apartment, you have a cheap car, but you have a good job, it's like bank that cash because you never know when this opportunity will come along where you're like, because then you have to get creative with how you're going to finance your dream or finance an opportunity that comes to you because you don't have those things in line. Relationships, you talked about, he was like, I'm not going out with my friends because Saturday Night Live's on.
Yep.
And Mr. Beast was like, I'm not going to college. I'm going to sit in my car and make
nothing but watch video, analyze thumbnails, didn't do anything. He had like these 4 dudes he hung out with, and they were on live chat like he said something like 20 hours a day or something like that. Just talking about YouTube. I'm like, dude,
trying to figure out how to make it work.
Yeah,
and he's the literal king of it now.
YouTube,
yeah, and no one's not even remotely close to him.
Nope.
And it's one of those things of like, if you want to do it, you gotta put the work in, and you gotta do it. I just lost my train of thought on something.
No, it was just I've been thinking about that a lot lately. It's like there's things in my life that I want to do, I want to accomplish, and I need to start having a more intentional focus on that. So like I'm not only talking to you guys, I'm talking to myself here as well, because like I need to be more focused on the things that I think are the most important in my life. So
yeah, but planning matters. Planning matters. If you want to do something, focus is important. You have to focus on the planning too. Oh, Stephen King, back to him. He was talking about whenever he was a kid, they didn't have a TV, which is why he attributes that a lot to him being as prolific as a writer as he was, because he would read all the time. He still reads something like 70 books a year or something like that from all genres and all things, because he just wants to like engross himself in the art that he's involved with. It's literally like he reads, he writes, and he watches Red Sox baseball, and like that's his life. And he has a family and all, but it's really fascinating because he was talking about his brother was trying to create a battery for a science fair project, and he wanted this, or not, he wanted a magnet, but it was built off of a battery, and he was like, well, if I use this battery, it's only so powerful, and it would like pick up some lead or something. He's like, but if I plugged it into the wall, I would have the house's powering my magnet, and then I could pick up a car, or whatever it was. And so he wires this thing up, and he plugs it into the wall, and it blows everything, blows their TV up. So they don't have a TV anymore. And he makes a joke at the end of one of the chapters. He's like, if you want to be a good writer, blow your TV up. Yeah. And like, because it does suck up so much of our time. I noticed it. I went through a season where for some reason I got really locked into watching just TV shows. Like I'm not normally a huge TV watcher. I don't really like to sit on the couch and watch TV a whole lot. But I found myself like 3 weekends in a row. From the time I got off work, I would like go home that evening, watch TV with my wife. And then like the next day I just wouldn't do anything. I just like play with my kid, watch TV, whatever. I was like, well, no, we got to stop this. And so I did the same thing. I didn't blow my TV up, but I was like, turn it off, read something, write something, do something productive. Even if it's not towards a goal necessarily, just be productive and like thinking about things and focusing on things. And I noticed a humongous shift in like whenever I would be doing this, we'd have a conversation, like things would just kind of pop in my head because I had good thoughts in my head. I had good, new thoughts in my head rather, versus when I was watching TV, it's like, oh, I've got a funny quote from insert show here, but you're not actually getting any better. It's not driving you towards a dream or a goal. Yep. But that also, you just get locked into laziness, and you're tired. You come home from work and you sit down on the couch and you eat dinner and you watch TV, and it's like, oh well, the night's over. I got this goal. I want to be the biggest, baddest, whatever. I want to be on Saturday Night Live, but you didn't do anything today to go get on Saturday Night Live. You're just really good at quoting The Office for the 8,000th time. It's not going to get you anywhere.
Yeah, that's really good. It reminds me a lot when you're speaking there, the Paul's verse. I don't remember what book, but he talks about like strip off all the sins that can slow you down. Run the race set out for you, and strip up all the old sins that are weighing you down, because that is what you're talking about, like getting rid of the things that like not only just, yes, you're striving to run faster, but you're also getting those things that can slow you down off of you, like you said, like coming home every night, and if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing and you're just like watching TV or insert whatever there. I mean, it's not
tinkering with your car in the garage and not actually trying to build a car. You're just tinkering for fun.
It reminds me of what's the running back who plays for used to play for San Francisco, the little short white guy,
McCaffrey.
You ever heard the I think it was like a 30 for 30. Have you ever seen his 30 for 30? He was talking about his interview with his dad. His dad's also an NFL player as well. I can't remember what his dad's name, but he was a wide receiver in the NFL. And he was always talking about, like, you could tell, like, when you watch Christian McCaffrey, like, his stuff is, like, so snug to him. I don't know if have you ever noticed that? Like, his jersey is the snuggest you can possibly pants. Everything is the most snug, because he's like, his dad from a young age was like, I hate when being dragged down by my jersey. He said that's the thing that would make him the most mad. He was talking about how, like, everything he had, he would cut it, sew it back up, how it would be super tight, like shoes, socks, everything. He hated loose, baggy clothing at all. So everything was just like super sucked to him. And then, like, he passed that on to Christian as well. And so, like, in the NFL, you'll see, like, people trying to grab Christian, like, grab his jersey or whatever. You can't, because it is so tight. Yeah. Just kind of reminds me of, like, the devil's gonna be trying to, like, drag you down, but if you have everything prioritized and you have everything kind of like sucked in, you are focused and you can't get dragged down. So it just kind of reminds me of that.
No, it's good. Yeah, there's a book. It's actually the number 2 self-help book, self-development book in the world right now. It's called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was a funny title. I didn't think it was actually a vulgar book. Turns out it's pretty vulgar, so I'm not recommending you go read it. But he talks about one of, like, the principles in it was, like, you can't care about everything. So what are you going to care about? And, in our daily life, we can't care about everything. We can't do everything. It's just not possible. If you do everything, you're going to do all of it poorly. But if you do a couple of things focused, you're going to do a couple of things well, or as well as you can do them in whatever stage you're in. You can always be working to get better at them. But I think that that's important. We have to support our family. we have to, or let me back up. We have to spend time with God. That has to be a priority in our life. We have to focus there. We have to spend time with our family intentionally. But then I think whatever that next thing is has to fill in right there. I may have told it on here before, but I knew that I was never going to be the best at selling insurance because I looked around at the guys who were the best at selling it, and I was like, I never want that life. And it's like, well, if they're the best doing it, and I don't want to do what they're doing to be the best, I'm never going to be the best. It was very clear to me. And so I actually changed my role in the insurance agency when I recognized it, because I was like, no, that's not ever going to be a thing that I'm going to want to do long term, or a thing that I'm willing to do, period. Because it became everything to them. It was their hobby, was the kind of the chase of the next client or the next creative way to make a sale, the networking and the spending time with people. That was their friends. Their clients became their entire friend group and their family in a lot of ways. The hours, their home was the office. Literally, they're last person to leave, first person to get there the next morning. Like, it became their life to be the best at it, and they were exceptionally good at it. I wasn't willing to do that, so I had to look around and be like, what is my actual priority in life, and what do I want to accomplish with my life? And I had to change the direction. I still needed a job, and I was good at what I did, so I was like, okay, let me do this. I can be really good at this while I figure out what's next or what's going on, which obviously for a long time, I wanted to pastor. And so that was where my focus went in all my free time. But, I think if you have a job, you keep it. That's the goal is not to quit everything you're doing to go chase a dream. But whenever you have those hours, that free time, that's where you can put this focus on what it is you actually desire to do with your life. My kid loves to make music, but he's getting to an age where he's got to get a job. Like, he's moving out. He's got to get a full-time job. And, I laid the options out for him. I was like, if you go get a degree and you go get a corporate job, I said, your job starts at 8, it ends at 5. You can wake up early and you got hours in the morning. You can go home at 5 and you got hours at night to work on your music. Or you could go work in a warehouse. You may have 12-hour days. You get there at 6, you get off at 6. I was like, you're not going to get up before, and you're going to be tired when you get home. I was like, when are you going to work on your music? It's like, so sometimes we have to set those things up in our life to be able to do the things and make the sacrifices in the short term for the long-term goal and gain. And those are just things we have to be willing to do.
Yeah, it reminds me when you're talking about the story you were talking about, but it reminds me of like when you're selling insurance, how you were looking at the guy and you were like, I want what he has, but then you're like, you look at his life and you're like, well, I don't want that life that he has. So
big difference.
It just reminds me of Ronnie Coleman, the bodybuilder, where he was his famous quote. I don't know if you know, but he's always like lifting, crazy amounts of weight. Like, he was not only like, yes, he was a huge bodybuilder, but he would lift some like heavy weight. And
he did it a really hard way.
Yeah. He's always be like, everybody wants to be a bodybuilder, but nobody want to lift that heavy butt weight. And so it just kind of reminds me, I was like, yeah, you want to look like Ronnie Coleman, but you don't want to go through the lifestyle that Ronnie Coleman has, because it's not, you're gonna mess yourself up trying to get there. And
he messed himself up.
He
can't walk now.
He's got some issues because of it. But he was saying, like, I live the life I have because nobody else is willing to put the life. I mean, he also had some crazy genetics, and you have to have it to do that. But he was talking about, like, everybody wants to look this big and be this big, but nobody want to lift that weight.
Yeah. They willing to try it.
And nobody wants to lift it out because it's going to hurt yourself. So, but
I think sport's a great place to look at when you start looking at these types of things. Yep. Bodybuilder's a great one it's a great area of fitness to look at for this, because like, they don't make a lot of money for a really long time. There's very few of them that are actually, well, with Instagram and some of those things, some of them make a lot of money earlier now, but for those guys didn't make any money. The majority, no.
He
was a cop.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, he had a full day job, and he was a policeman. He went home at lunch and would make his meals, would eat them in his squad car. Yep. Like, he did all the other things in life before he was Ronnie Coleman that we know today. And a lot of those guys' story is that way. They're either like borderline homeless, sleeping in the gym. All of their money goes to the food and drugs that they take. But, they sacrifice everything for this goal. And the goal really is never the fame or the money for a lot of them. A lot of them is they want to win. It's a competition for them. But very few of them become like household names that we know. You know, Arnold. But Arnold wanted to be an actor. That was like part of his dream and his story. Ronnie Coleman wanted, you know, he won and he ended up being famous from that. You have some Instagram person, Cal Moger or whatever, however you say that Australian dude's name. But there's like I couldn't tell you who's won the last 4 years.
No, besides like
the Olympia.
Well, besides like Chris Bumstead, like that's he's the only name that I know. Right now, like, but the Open, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But he's in whatever class. Like,
but again, probably more famous from Instagram and stuff than he is from his actual like on stage competition,
YouTube.
But yeah, so I think that's an interesting one to look at for that because they are just ultra running same way. There's absolutely $0 in ultra running. They live off sponsors and they live in the most expensive places in the world because that's where they have to be to run in the mountains all the time. But they live these very nomadic lifestyles. The free climber, Alex Honnold, literally lived in his van at the foot of the mountain and would go climb it every day. And he's probably the best, at least the most famous climber in the world.
Yeah, so I was saying, like, every one of these stories we've been talking about today is like they all kind of go back to that tear everything out that is not important to you. Like, even if like a normal person would say that's pretty important, like you need to hang out with your friends. These people were like, no,
to be a healthy, functioning person, you must build relationships.
Yeah, it's just interesting about like the people who are like you think like they're the masters of their class, they're the best of the best in their life, and they're borderline. Most of them are just like crazy insane of the intentionality and the focus that they have in their life. So it's just very interesting.
I don't know who had the quote, but there is a quote. It's like there's a thin line between crazy and genius. And it's really probably just more that those who are genius are the ones who are successful with their crazy than the others. But with all of that being said, it sounds very much like we're saying if you want to accomplish something, scrap everything from your life that takes your time to achieve it. But we have the biggest caveat we've ever done on the Pointman podcast has to be in
biggest
here.
One, okay.
Because it has to be centered in God.
Amen.
Yeah. God has to be the center of the driving force. Yep. Income can never be the center of our driving force. You will always want more, or you will always be unhappy with what you've received. God has to be the center of it. You have to be comfortable with God's plan for your life. You have to be comfortable with God's providence over your life, and you have to be willing to submit to that. That's the beginning of if you believe Jesus is Lord, that has to be the beginning of your decision-making process, regardless of what the end goal is for you. If you want to be the best basketball player in the world, that's incredible. But it has to come from it being part of God's plan for your life. He has providence and he has control of the situation, regardless of how hard you work. And his plan may not be for you to be on Saturday Night Live. His plan may be for you to use that communication ability to do something else, and you have to submit to that or you're going to be banging your head against God. And whenever I left the insurance agency, when I told my the salesman I worked with, he was like, I'll fight and I'll negotiate against a lot of people, so I'm not negotiating against God. And I was like, well, I appreciate that. I was leaving either way. But,
yeah, you can't but,
yeah, he's like, I can't outbid God. And I was like, no, that's an interesting way of looking at it, but it's true. Yep. And, in all of our lives, no matter what it is we choose to do, that's the core. We have to really be in that focus. And that has to be the main portion of our focus before our family, even before anything we do. That has to be the main portion of our focus. And then the rest of your priorities really are up to you and what you're willing to stomach.
Yep.
Like these crazy people, they were exceptionally successful. I guarantee you they don't have great families. Like Mr. Beast is pretty well known. Like I know now he's like hired his mom but he was a headache to his mom. And he's said that in interviews before where it's like he like essentially lied to her about going to college so that he could get 6 more months to try to make YouTube work for him. And I know he has a fiance now, I think, but up to this point, he's had no relationships really, other than his friends that he makes videos with and his companies. That's a crazy life. And like, so is family important to you? Well, then you probably aren't going to be Mr. Beast. Like, you're probably not going to be able to devote the hours to these things. When you're having kids or you're planning family with your wife, like for me and my wife, we decided that we're done. One's enough. We think that there's things we're supposed to do in this life that are going to require time, and we don't have time to devote to more children than the one we've got. So we stopped having kids. We were like, that's enough for us. I know you have 3, and that's important to you.
Right.
And that's a part of your life is you have a big family. Y'all are all very close. And so it was worth it to you. And part of your planning with your family of your future was you're going to have a big family.
No doubt.
And that's fine too. It's different for different people.
Yeah. But like you said, both of our priorities that I know of, that it's God first, no matter what. Before my wife, before my kids, it's God, my relationship with God. If something does get in that way, I'm going to not tear it down, but like focus on God more than anything else, because that's the most important thing. Like you said, God, my family is next. Yes. We have a big family, and a lot of my time, like I was hanging out with one of my previous buddies I used to have when I first joined the Air Force over this past week, and he was like, he was telling me about all he has no kids yet. He wants to one day, but he was telling me like, what do you, we just get catching up, and he's like, what you doing these days? And I just described to him my life. He's like, so you're dad, huh? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, you do that dad life. I'm like, yeah, we do the dad life. That's the big thing. But one of the things that super brings me joy is the kids. But yeah, like the pendulum of life is the struggles with the kids. It's most stressful. Also the best moments of my life is with the kids as well. But dad life for sure. But like I said, I have to make that a priority, because if I don't, something else can easily get in that way and easily take my focus away from that. But yeah, God, family, and then whatever else I decide is important to me. Fitness sometimes in there.
Yeah, which I do have to caveat. I have 2 kids. I said I have 1 kid.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but I was like, I mean, biological.
Well, and my oldest son's 19. Yep. Like at this point, he needs me about as much as everybody else in the world needs me. He's self-sufficient for the most part. So he's kind of like, do you want to do something, is pretty much what that boils down to these days. All right, you screwed up. Here's how you should fix that. But, I don't have that intentional time needed. He didn't even, he's only lived back in the house for a short period of time anyway. He had lived on his own for a while. So I have to. I love both of my sons, but my oldest one is self-sufficient. I don't have to think about him when I make future plans necessarily in the same way I have to think about the 3-year-old.
He's on his own. You're on your own.
I can't turn the 3-year-old over to the wolves yet, but it's pretty quick in our house. Once you can support yourself, you're pretty much on your own. You should get on getting on. That's how my mom was too. But my parents were that way too. My mom's a high achieving executive in the corporate world, and that was an important part of her life, and she was focused on that and has been very successful with it. And little things that would drive me nuts about life bother her none. She lives in hotels a ton. She's always flying out early Sunday morning or late Sunday night and coming back late in the week. Like that's just normal life for her, and she's completely comfortable with it because that fits into her alignment and her focus. Yep. For me, I did that for a year, and I was like, oh, no, I would like to have my home
base.
Yeah. Yeah, I lived in an Embassy Suites for 9 months. And in Jackson, Mississippi, the greatest place to live in Embassy Suites. And it's not fun for me, but other people, it's perfectly fine. They enjoy it. So to wrap that in, it's like you got to know what you're comfortable with and what you're willing to deal with and manage. If your focus is going to be in a certain direction, if you want to be an executive, that's part of the life. Like you just got to be okay with, hotel room to hotel room. But if you focus on your family and that's where you want to be, you got to be home and you got to be present with your kids. You can't really split that focus because it's not going to work out well in the end. And it just changes the dynamics, and you have to plan for that, and you have to think about that whenever you make those big decisions like that. And some people struggle with that.
Yeah, no doubt. A lot of times when I'm making those big decisions, like I'll pray for sure. Like that's the first thing I'll do. Like I'm trying to make a big decision. Like I try not ever to make a decision without at least asking God about it. First off, but and then right after that, I'm thinking like, how would this affect, my other next priority, whatever the next priority is in my life, my wife, and then my kids, and then I say fitness. I don't know why that keeps coming to my mind, but I guess work sort of in there. But I don't really care.
How does this get in the way of my workout routine?
I don't really care about work. Like work is way down the list and at the bottom of the list somewhere. But yeah, I have to do that to support my family, like you were just talking about.
Yeah. Well, I think work sometimes it depends on what you do. Like for me, work is the most, I work for a church. So work kind of is the most important thing in my life, but it's in a different context. It's like, I want to minister to as many people. I want to find new ways to engage people with the Bible. And so like 99% of the time, if I'm just like driving or sitting around the house or even listening to other stuff, I'm like, oh, how can we use that or could we do something creative with that? I was just telling you earlier, I wanted to do a second like show for our YouTube channel where we kind of do something we've never done before. And I don't even know if we can do it, but I think it would be really cool. But I think it's an interesting way to tell a story about someone and how God has changed their life. That came because I was listening to a different podcast and they were talking about George Washington. And I was like, I don't have any George Washington type stories, but we got some interesting stories.
Oh, yeah.
And there's got to be an interesting way to tell them. So that's how like my whole brain works 90% of the time. It's funny because I'm very like I process in my head, and then when I talk on stuff like this, my wife just talks to process. So like when we are on the way home, like today we rode together, and she'll tell. I guarantee you, this is what will happen. We will get in the car here, and she will tell me everything that happened in her day between here and our house. We live 2 miles from here. I will say yes or no. That's all I'll say probably the whole way home. But I will not tell her anything about my day because in my head, I'm thinking like, oh, this happened. We still got to get this done. It's like what she needs to process those things out to me. That's how she processes thoughts and planning. I do it all in my head. And then it was funny during our last Pointman semester, we have 2 Johns who joined our team.
Yep. Shout out Johns.
And Pastor Eddie calls him first John, second John.
Dang, we do have a third John too, though.
Yeah, that's true. We do. So we actually have first, second, and third John on the team. But one of them, he was like, "Hey, where's this thing?" And I was like, "Oh, it's down here. It's behind the locked door." So I was like, "I'll go get it in just a second." And somebody grabbed me like as soon as I turned away, and he started talking to me. Next thing I know, second John's tapping me on the shoulder. He's like, where is it? I'll go get it because you're never going to go get it. I was like, you learned really quickly because like I'll think all these things in my head and then I'll lose track sometimes of what's going on. And he was like, I've been around you long enough to know you're not actually ever going to make it to get that. So why don't you just where's the key? Let me go get it. I was just laughing, but I think it's one of those things. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about, I guess.
Yeah, you kind of got for us, but I think kind of got off the rails a little bit, but I think it kind of goes back to what you're saying with the focus. Yeah, very, very. Your focus was you have your priorities of where you're talking to your boys when you get to Pointman. Like that's the whole like we're connecting as guys and like whatever needs to be done, I can get done whenever. It
cracks me up because some people are like they're about the work. They're in every. When I was in the fitness world, it was this way too. Some people are very structured. Like they're going to coach the class and you're going to get the best work out of your life, but they may not say 2 words to you in between. I was always like joking with everybody, making fun of people. Like I was trying to engage with everyone, and that's where my personality goes. Like even around here, like I'll sit up here till 10 o'clock and talk to somebody every night of the week if there's somebody to talk to, because that's the best part. Like
I agree.
I never like to miss Sunday. Like we will schedule vacations to where we're back on Sunday because I'm like, that's why we do everything. It's because all the people are here then. That's why we talk. This is where we get to do the conversations and the connecting with people. It's a priority for me. Is any chance I get to get in a group or like most time in community groups, I go to, if there's a men's group on a night, I'm there because I just want to be a part of the conversation with all the guys from the church. I didn't this week because I was dead tired. We had a funeral and I was beat. But other than this week, I try to go to all of them because I just want to hear what's going on. I want to hear what everybody's dealing with. I just want to be, a part of the conversation. It's not even FOMO because I don't have that. It's just I want to be there with them. I want to talk with people and be engaging with them. It's a priority of mine.
Priority people. Bam, wrapped it back up, tied it in a bow. Bam.
Let's put this thing in a bow.
Okay.
What do you think?
Sounds good.
This has been the Pointman Podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe. I don't know if we actually taught you anything today or connected any dots for you, but I hope we did. Yeah. And make sure that you follow us on Facebook, that.church. Hit that space bar and then type in man. It'll pop right up for you. And we're TC Pointman everywhere else. Until next time, I'm Zach.
Luke.
Peace.